So this will be my finalized version for the Burn Elementalist condition damage for general PvE. Now again, I know I have been saying in every single one of my video, but I like to have this statement that I like to have the finalized versions for 2016. So next year, when the new changes come, I can refer back to the this build and see if I can improve in either my quality, video quality, and also my build quality as well. And so I prefer to have a source that I can refer back to. Alright, so just a bit of a background of the Ele before I move on to the build. So the Elementalist has been well received by a lot of people, and the Elementalist also has the highest damage in the game when you are using the Berserker build with full Scholar Rune. Now this build will not try to compete with the damage of that build. This build is just looking at a different perspective from the condition damage, especially for the burning condition damage, and see how the Ele will perform. And I have found that this build is quite fun to play, especially for the meta events or when I'm doing the solo content, and I have been enjoying this build ever since I look more into the condition damage of the Ele. And so without further ado, I like to get into the build itself, starting off with the specializations, and then I'll move on to the equipment, and then I'll finish it off with the weapons and other information sections. Alright, now so let's talk about the specializations of the Elementalist. Now I have the Fire, Earth, and Tempest. So for the first specialization, the Fire, I have top, and middle. For the first one, burning positions, critical hits have a chance to cause burning, and burning lasts longer. Now because this build is tailored to the burning condition damage, and whenever I apply the critical hit, I have a chance to inflict extra burning condition damage stack on the target foe, and also my burning condition damage will last longer, so the more it stays, the better, right? Now for the next one, I have Pyromancer training, deal more damage while attuned to fire, reduce recharge on all 5 weapon skills. And most of the time I will be using my fire attunement to apply burning condition damage, and because of that I like to have an increase in the damage and also reduce the recharge of my fire weapon skill, so the faster I can cast out my spell, the better. Now for the last one, I have another Pyromancer. Now each skills I use while attuned to fire will allow me to have might. Might is a boon that will increase my physical damage, but it can also increase the condition damage as well. The maximum amount of might stack that you can get is 25, so the more that you have, the better, right? So in a meta event, ideally you want to have the more might stack boon, and that will give you an increase in your damage. Alright, so now for the next one, Earth. Earth, I have middle, top, and middle. The first one, I have Serrated Stones. Bleed you apply, deal more damage, and also bleed you apply lasts longer and deal more damage to bleeding foes. Now in the meta event, chances are that you'll be doing with a lot of people, and because of that, when they attack on the same target, most of the time they will be applying the bleeding condition damage. And because of that, when you have the bleeding condition damage on a target foe, when you deal the damage to them, you will have an increase in 5%. Now so from time to time I will be swapping to the Overlord Earth attunement, and whenever I swap to this one, I have the access to bleeding condition damage, as you can see in here. Impale, spear your target and or spear your foes on a giant stone spike, and that will apply the bleeding as well. Now when I swap to the Earth attunement, it's for 2 reasons. One is for protections, and another one is for the CC. And as you can see in here, skill 3, I have the ability to grasp the target foe, and that will immobilize them and also making them vulnerable to the magnetic leaf attack. And that is one of my CC skill that I prefer to have, especially when I'm dealing with a single target that has a CC bar that I need to break. Now if you don't know what CC is, then I will refer you down to the description box. I will be uploading a CC video to talk about that mechanic. Alright, so for the next one, I have Earthquake, and this one is another CC skill that I prefer to use on a regular basis when it comes to, you know, the target foe that has a CC. Alright, so for the next one, I have Strength of Stone. So gain condition damage based on your toughness. Now, by default, you will have 1000 points in your toughness, and 10% of that which will give you 100 points in your condition damage. So you know, that's nice. An extra 100 points is quite decent for your condition damage. Now for the next one, I have written in stone, and maintain the passive effect of signets when you activate them. Reduce recharge of signets. Now as you can see in here, this is what I prefer to have in my setup, especially when I go ahead and do my rooming activities. So Signet of Air allows me to have 25% increase in movement speed, and whenever I activate the Signet, it will apply my target and the nearby foes. So it can serve as a survival skill, so that I apply the target foe, and also it can serve as an increase in damage as well because of the vulnerability. So vulnerability condition will allow me to deal more damage to the foe and also the condition damage as well. And as you can see in the description of the skill, vulnerability 5.25 second, 8% incoming damage and 8% incoming condition damage. So if you cast this on the target foe, that's what they will receive. And it's nice to have the movement speed so that I can close the distance of my travel. Now for the next one, I have Signet of Fire. I always have the Signet of Fire. The reason for that is because the Signet's passive will increase my critical chance, and the more critical chance that I have the chance on critical hit by 33% to inflict more burning condition damage, right? And also whenever I activate my Signet, I will apply the burning 4 stacks on the target foe. So the more burning condition damage stack that I have, the better. That's why I have this. And I will talk about my different variety of utility that I will consider swapping in a later section of this, in the later part of the sections, specializations. Alright, so let's move on to the next one, Tempest. For the Tempest, I am having bottom, and bottom. Now for the first one, Unstable Conduit, and this another one, Harmonious Conduit. So these two will allow me to, let's talk about this one first. This one will allow me to have the stability and also an increase in condition, an increase in my damage by 10% for 5 seconds. So that is really good. And whenever you're in the meta event, chances are there will be a lot of mobs coming in and try to disable you. They can knock you back, they can pull you, they can stun you, and etc. And because of that, stability will help you prevent any crowd control effect, and that will allow you to deal damage to the target or multiple targets. And having an extra 10% of your damage for 5 seconds, even though 5 seconds doesn't, you know, look like a lot, but an extra 10% is really nice, right? Now for the next one, sorry, actually it's a previous one, Unstable Conduit. So when you overloading an achievement, that will give you an aura, and based on the achievement, it will give you different aura. So most of the time you'll be staying with the overload 5 achievement. That will give you 5 shield, and the 5 shield will give you an extra burning condition damage and also give you the mind stack every time you are struck. So that is really nice, right? But you can also use this one as a survival skill as well. So for example, if you swap to the water achievement, that will give you a frost aura, which will reduce 10% of the incoming damage. Or if you want to use the air achievement, it will give you an ability to stun nearby attacking foes with an electric shock, only once per 2 seconds for each attacker. So then the last one, which is magnetic aura, reflect projectiles with magnetic energy, so that will provide you with extra survival ability. Now for the last one, I have the elemental passion. This auras, when I will apply the healing to allies, because whenever this ability allows me to have that ability is because whenever I'm being attacked, that one will apply the Frost Aura to nearby allies and also heal them as well. So as you can see in here, the Frost Aura is exactly the same with this one. So I prefer to have that one, especially when it comes to meta event, right? I will be going doing the events with a lot of people, and because of that I like to have this one right here to show some support. Of course, you can consider having this one as well. This one is remove and gain a massive resistance to movement impeding conditions while overloading your attunement condition duration reductions by 100%. It's good, it's a survival skill for sure, but I prefer to give some support to my allies. So it's a matter of preferences, and I'm just giving you the options. And also another one that I can mention is the Stone Heart. So whenever I swap to the Earth Attunement, I can have the ability to give myself extra protections by having no critical hit protections on me. So whenever I attune to that, I will not be targeted by any critical hits, and so that is really nice. Alright, so for other consideration as well, you can also have this one, Elemental Shielding, which will give you protection when applying aura to yourself or allies. And as you can see in here, that's a Frost Aura, right? So that will give you another protection on top. But most of the time, you'll be having protection from this one anyway. So that's why I don't take it. But it's up to you if you want to have extra protections. Alright, so now let's talk about the utility. So for the utility, I have Glyph of Elemental Harmony, which heal myself and gain boons based on your attunement. And as you can see in here, I will be trying to stay in the fire attunement most of the time, and because of that, whenever I use my heal, it will give me a might. But if I swap to Earth, that will give me protection as well. So that's really nice, and protection is a 40% reduced incoming damage, so that's perfect for survival skill. Alright, so let me just move back to the fire. Now for the next one, I have Firestorm. This glyph will provide me with the ability to have the Firestorm AoE damage, and as you can see in here, I'll be dropping this one, and so that will be dealing AoE damage, fire damage over the period of 10 seconds. Really nice. Now for this one, Signal, I already mentioned it, and so with this, so before I'm moving into the variety, I will be quickly touch on the Elite. Now for the Elite, I prefer to have the Glyph of Elementals, which will summon an elemental based on your attunement. So whenever I do the content by myself, or sometime in the meta event, if I prefer to have the extra companion to help me with the battle, then in that case I will be having the Glyph of Elementals. But otherwise, there are all the considerations. So for the first one, I have the Rebound, which will infuse your allies with arcane energy. Allies who would take lethal damage while this is active ignore the death blow and are healed instead. So this is a survival skill, and it can also serve as a support to your allies as well in the critical situations. So that's another considerations. And the last considerations that I usually take into account is this one here, Conjure Fairy Great Sword, and that will provide you with a great sword, and that will have a duration of 60 seconds, is a minute, but it also provides you with the extra ability to deal damage on the foe. So let me just give you a demonstrations. So I dropped the great sword right here, so that's one extra great sword that my allies can use, but I can also have one for myself as well. And whenever I use this, I have extra ability. So as you can see in here that I have Flame Wave, I have Fairy Interruption, that's another 6 burning condition in my stacks. I have another this is what I usually call the Whirlwind, because you know, as you can see in here, that is what it can serve as an escape, because when you use this one, right, you evade all of the attacks, so that it can serve as an escape as well. And now this one, charge at the foe and also leave the fire thread behind me, so that it can serve as an attack. Now for the last one, I have the Firestorm, so I call down at the target locations the AoE spell, so that's larger than my well, actually they are about the same. Okay, I thought this one was larger. Alright, so they are about the same, so I have an extra AoE at my command so that I can use. So it's entirely up to you if you want to have extra damage from the great sword, or if you prefer to have extra companion, that's also fine as well. Alright, so now let's talk about the utility. For the utility, there's a variety of them that you can consider. Now, because I specialize in the signet, and because of that, sometimes I consider to have extra signet with me. So the choice that I prefer to have, like my considerations, is the signet of earth. Now, this one will provide me with extra toughness, and as you can see in here, I have 180 points in my toughness, and as you recall, I have strength of stone. Gain condition damage based on my toughness, and because more toughness, more condition damage, right? And this can also provide me with extra defense as well, because toughness equal to the more defense that you can have to reduce the incoming damage from the mobs. And it can also provide me with the ability to have a soft CC skill in the form of immobilize, and it can also bleed the target for as well. And as you recall right here, serrated stones, bleeds you apply last longer and deal more damage to bleeding foes. So that is very nice. That is in my consideration as well, especially when I'm targeting a boss or a champion that requires more damage. That is into my consideration for having the signet of earth. But other than that, I also have into the consideration the armor of earth as well. And the same with this one, teleport to target area. This one can serve as an escape, and this one as well, misform. It will allow me to escape from the critical situations by making myself invulnerable. And so that's really nice. Now for next one, feel the burn, heat wave. That's another AoE skill, and also this one as well is for CC, a little bit more crowd control. And from time to time, I'll be consider having the frost bow. Now this one is another conjuring weapon that is similar to this one, but it works differently. I'll show you a demonstration on that in a second. So let's talk about the renewal. This one will revive allies with different attunement effect. So this one can serve as a support to your allies as well, and that is also in my considerations. So this one also in consideration as well, glyph of lesser elementals. I summon a lesser elemental, so combine that with that one and combine with this, I have two elementals at my disposal. Now this one gain a chance for spells to inflict a condition damage based on your attunement. So from time to time, I might consider having this one, but most of the time I prefer to be using the signet of earth. Aside from that, I'm not using I don't consider any other ones, but feel free to use whatever you feel like having. But for now, what I prefer to have are those that I already mentioned. So let me just quickly touch about the frostbow. So for the frostbow, a quick demonstration. You have the all of your attack, right? But it can also apply the vulnerability as well, and condition tap on the target foe. Now, but I like to have this one right here, cone down an ice storm to target area that will inflict the bleeding, and the last one is also provide you with extra CC as well, and this one is considered one of the hard CC because it can freeze your target in the blocks of solid ice. So that's really nice CC if you prefer to have that to quickly CC the boss or the champion. Alright, so let me just show you a quick demonstration of this one. So you can see in here that I coning out of the ice storm that will focusing on that target area. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Now let me just quickly talk about the attunement and also the overload mechanic before I move on to the equipment. So as you can see in here, the Elementalist I was saying that I should be using Ele instead of Elementalist, but it's bad habit. Alright, so anyway, so for the Ele, you have 4 attunements that you can swap in between. So for fire is your main damage, and this is the your main damage for the burning, and but can also consider to be your physical damage as well for those of you who play the physical build, berserker physical build of the Ele with critical chance. Now the next one, water attunement. Attune to water, gaining superior support and healing ability. So this one is for healing and also to support your allies. Now for the next one, air attunement, gain a heavy damage and control abilities. And the last one, earth attunement, attune to earth, gaining superior damage over time and defensive ability. So each one of them will have a different functions, and a good Ele is the one that can utilize every single one of them given the scenario and respond to that scenario effectively. Now, I'm not a good Ele, that's a fact. I'm still learning it, but I find the Ele to be really fun to play, and I find more enjoyment out of my Ele every now and then, especially when I'm trying to respond to the event or to respond to the scenario that require me to swap in between the achievement and respond to the scenario effectively. And I find that to be a challenge that I need to overcome, but so far I am enjoying it. So I'm just going to touch about the overload mechanic. The overload mechanic is the new mechanic that was introduced with the Heart of Stone expansions, and that is in tight with the Tempest and Specializations. So whenever you activate this overload, you will have a different ability after attuning into that elemental. You can also have an extra skill as well. So let me just give you a demonstration. So in here I overload my fire, I'm getting might, I'm getting stability, and when it's finished I have the fire shield along with an increase in my damage. Now let me just swap to the earth. So when that one is cooling down, I have the ability to swap to the earth and it start overloading again. See, this one provide me with the protections, but it can also pushing back the foes. And when it finished, I have the aura as well, an increase in the damage. Now let's swap to the air. The air is the same thing. If I activate the overload mechanic, I also can deal damage to the multiple mobs standing around me, and also it gives me the ability to have the shocking aura and also increase in damage. So not only that you have 5 skills in your weapons, but you also have access to an extra skill from your overload mechanics, and it's nice if you can utilize that skill effectively to respond to a scenario. And so I find the Ele to be really unique, and I love playing it every now and then. And so the last one, I'm just going to quickly show you before I move on to the equipment. So for the last one, overload water. The water is the healing specs, and when you activate it, you'll be giving protections, but you can also heal your allies as well. And when they finish, you have the regenerations. So that's very nice. Alright, so that pretty much is what I want to cover for the specializations. Now I will be moving to the equipment. Now for the Burn Elementalist equipment, it's fairly simple because this build is tailored to the burn, right? So Superior Rune of Balthazar will be a must for this build, and because Superior Rune of Balthazar not only providing you with the ability to have an increase in your burning condition durations, but it can also provide you with the burning condition damage as well, an extra one. And so because of that, the Superior Rune of Balthazar will be required for both maximizing options and also for your budget option. Now let's talk about the equipment stats. So for the equipment stats, if you want to maximize your damage, then in that case I would refer you to have full Viper sets for your equipment and also for your weapons. But for the trinkets, you can mix it with the Sinisters to increase extra critical chance and also extra condition damage from the stats of the stat of Sinister is power, precisions, and condition damage. So you can mix that one up to increase extra condition damage for your character. Now let's move on to the budget. For the budget option, it's fairly simple. You have 2 options that you can choose. You can either go with the you can either go with the Rampagers, or you can go with the option of the Rabid. And the options of the Rampagers will provide you with the extra critical chance from the stat of power, precisions, and condition damage. Now for the Rabid set, is providing you with extra toughness. So the Rabid set will be precisions, toughness, and condition damage. So it's entirely up to you which one you want to pick. But I highly recommend for you to try out with the Rabid set because it provides you with extra toughness, and the longer that you survive in the battlefield, the better. The better for you, because you will be getting more loot and continue to deal damage to the mobs, right? So this is my opinion. If you want to go with the Rampagers, feel free to go with it. If you need more protections and extra toughness to reduce incoming damage, then in that case go with the Rabid options for more toughness. So that's pretty much it. Now for the weapon choice, it's fairly simple. I prefer to use 2 daggers. Now the reason why I'm using 2 daggers is because during the October patch 2016, AreaNet has made some changes to the dagger for the Ele, and that changes was considered to be a buff because they increased the amount of damage and also make it more effective to use the dagger, and because of that I am using 2 daggers. However, I also keep with me a scepter and also a focus from time to time, that if I need to swap in between, if I want to have more AoE or if I want to have a very specific skill from either the focus or the scepter. And because of that I like to have those 2, and also I consider to have the warhorn as well for extra CC if I need it, but otherwise I'll be using 2 dagger on the regular basics. But I also keep all the weapons, not necessary that I keeping them, you know, as a ascended quality. It would be nice, but for the warhorn and for the focus I am using exotic. Now for the scepter I do have another set of ascended, and because of that I need I just put it in for my Ele. Alright, so what would be the recommendation for the stats? Now for the stats, it's fairly simple. You either go with the Vipers if you can, or otherwise I would highly recommend you to just go with the Rampagers for extra precisions and also condition damage of that one. Now for the Sigil is also fairly simple because this one is tailored to the burn condition damage, right? So the superior Sigil of Smoldering, which will give you an extra 20% in the burning durations, is a nice Sigil to have. Now for the next one, there's a variety of options that you can choose. You can either go with the superior Sigil of bursting, which will give you an extra 6% in your condition damage, or you can go with the superior Sigil of earth, which will give you a 60% chance on hit. It will inflict a bleeding damage, and as you recall earlier that I have the specs that increase my overall damage by 5% whenever I'm attacking targets that has a bleeding condition. So it's entirely up to you if you want to go with the superior Sigil of earth, or you want to go with the superior Sigil of mallets for bursting for an extra 6% increase in your condition damage. So that's pretty much it for the weapon. Now for the other information sections, I actually don't have anything that I should add into this section because I already cover all of the things I wanted to say for this build. Now perhaps if it's possible, then I would recommend you to be doing the 3 new maps: BloodStone Fen, Ember Bay, and Bitterfrost Frontier. Those 3 maps will provide you with the ability to purchase ascended quality for your trinkets, so that include pack piece, accessory, and the ring, and they do provide you with the Viper stats, which will increase your damage overall for your burn Ele if you wanted to do those 3 maps. I will put the link down in the descriptions of those of the video for those 3 maps, an overview, so you can have a look. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, and if you have any feedback, also do that as well. As always, I wish you luck, have fun, and I will see you later.